Hey, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. You know we love these. And today, we're going right for our sweet spot, business leadership. And we've got a little Shaqtastic intrigue thrown in for good measure.
Ooh, I like that.
So you guys sent us this story about Shaquille O'Neal going undercover at a luxury car dealership that he just bought Elite Motors down in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's the classic undercover boss move. And it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Really.
Why is
I
that?
mean, just think about it. Shaq could have just walked in there, celebrity
The
entourage.
whole 9 yards.
Yeah. But instead he goes incognito, old blazer, wrinkled shirt.
Did he have like one of those like 90s dad cell phones too?
He even rolls up in an old SUV.
Yeah.
Like really playing the part.
Wow. So he really ditched the fame and fortune facade to get a real look at the culture at Elite Motors, huh?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I think that actually reflects a core leadership principle, to really understand the reality on the ground before you start trying to make changes from the top down.
Right. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. But he took it literally.
Exactly. And I think that kind of firsthand experience is just so valuable for a leader, especially when you're taking over a new company.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what did Shaq find when he went undercover at Elite Motors? Was it a slam dunk?
Well, not exactly. What
Yeah.
Shaq discovered when he walked through those doors wasn't exactly a championship caliber culture.
Uh-oh.
He meets Jessica, the sales manager,
Uh-huh.
and let's just say that her initial interaction with Shaq was a textbook example of what not to do.
Ooh, this is where it gets juicy. Tell me more.
Right. So Jessica, she sizes up Shaq based purely on his appearance, or I guess I should say his disguise.
Right.
And she basically assumes that he can't afford any of the fancy cars on the lot.
Now, come on. This is Shaquille O'Neal we're talking about.
I know it's almost hard to believe.
All right.
But this just shows how deeply ingrained these biases can be. And that's really what we're seeing here, implicit bias in action.
So what is implicit bias?
Basically, these are the unconscious assumptions that we make about people. Based on things like their appearance or their background, we all have them. But being aware of these biases is absolutely crucial for creating a fair and inclusive environment.
Gotcha. So Jessica's letting her implicit bias get in the way. And how does that play out in her interactions with Shaq?
Well, she kind of steers him towards the pre-owned lot, almost ushering him out the door.
Ouch.
Yeah. And she even drops lines like, most of our vehicles here start at 6 figures. I just want to make sure you don't waste your time.
Oh, man. It's like she's not even trying to make a sale here.
Not at all. She's operating from a place of judgment, assuming Shaq's financial status based purely on his clothes and his demeanor, and completely misses the opportunity to connect with a potential customer.
Yeah. Talk about a missed opportunity. This is Shaquille O'Neal. Like, come on.
Right.
So what does Shaq do? Does he just, like, glow his cover right then and there?
No, Shaq, being the strategic leader that he is, he takes it all in stride. He lets Jessica kind of reveal the dealership's flawed culture before he drops the bombshell.
Okay. Spill the tea. What happens?
So the story describes this pivotal moment where Shaq finally reveals his true identity. And he does it by calling the regional director, Richard.
Oh,
I
Sash.
can practically feel the tension in the room.
So what's Jessica's reaction when she realizes she's been underestimating Shaquille O'Neal this whole time?
I mean, priceless. The look on her face when she realizes that she just completely misjudged Shaq must have been incredible.
I bet. So it's a total shift in power dynamics then, huh?
Completely. She goes from dismissive to, realizing that she might have just jeopardized her job.
Whoa, what a plot twist. So what does Shaq do next?
Well, he gathers the entire staff for this dramatic all-hands meeting. And this is where he lays down the law.
Ooh.
He emphasizes the importance of respect, treating everyone fairly, and of course, addressing those unconscious biases that we were just talking about.
So he's using this as a teachable moment.
Exactly. He's not just yelling or punishing anyone. Instead, he's taking this opportunity to educate the staff about how their actions impact the customer experience and ultimately the reputation of the entire dealership.
So he's connecting the dots between individual behavior and the success of Elite Motors as a whole.
That's right. And he does it in a way that's both firm and inspiring. It's not about shaming anyone. It's about raising awareness.
Yeah.
And setting a new standard.
Yeah, I love that. So what about Jessica? Does she just slink away in shame?
Well, actually, she steps up and she delivers this really heartfelt public apology.
Good for her.
Yeah. She acknowledges her mistake. She takes responsibility for her bias, which is essential for rebuilding trust within the team.
That takes courage to admit you were wrong, especially in front of all your coworkers.
Yeah.
It does. And accountability is a crucial step in this kind of cultural transformation.
For sure. So Shaq gives this powerful speech. Jessica apologizes. But Shaq doesn't stop there, does he? He's got to have some kind of plan to really make lasting change. You're right, he does. And this is where it gets really interesting. This is where he starts putting a framework in place.
Okay. Tell me more.
So Shaq implements a customer service and attitude training program for all employees.
You mean like from the sales floor all the way up to the managers?
Everyone. No one's exempt.
Wow. So it's not just a one-off lecture. He's giving them the resources to actually change their behavior.
That's the key.
Yeah.
And this actually aligns with something called Cotter's 8-step change model.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah, it's a framework that's used in organizations to guide transformations. And it's all about creating urgency, building a coalition, and providing the tools and systems needed for long-term change.
So that training is a key part of it.
It is. And by including everyone in the training, Shaq is sending a powerful message. We're all in this together. There's no hierarchy when it comes to respect and creating a positive customer experience.
Love it. All right, so Shaq sets the stage with this big reveal and a powerful message. Then he puts the training program in place. But does it actually work? I mean, how do we know that it leads to lasting change? That's what we'll explore next time.
Absolutely. We're going to find out if those lessons actually stick. Stay tuned.
Can't wait. See you then.
See ya.
Okay, so we've seen Shaq lay down the law, and he puts those training programs in place, but let's be real. Can a single meeting and a few workshops really transform a deeply ingrained company culture? I'm a little skeptical. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a valid question. You're right to be skeptical.
Yeah.
Real change takes time, and it takes consistent effort. You know, it's kind of like trying to turn a giant ship. It takes a lot to change direction. But I think Shaq's not just relying on that one-time intervention.
Yeah.
You know, he's really playing the long game here.
Okay, so walk me through this. How do those training programs actually translate into changed behavior? Like, how does that happen?
Well, for starters, the training gives employees a new playbook. So they can't just rely on their old habits and assumptions anymore. They're learning concrete strategies for interacting with customers respectfully and providing genuine service, regardless of appearances.
Okay, so it's about equipping them with the tools and the knowledge to actually embody those values.
Exactly. But it goes beyond just the training.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You need to see those new behaviors in action.
Right.
People are much more likely to change when they have role models, examples of what this new culture actually looks like day to day.
Gotcha. And who better to set that example than Shaq himself? The story mentioned that he actually went back to the dealership a week later, and he witnessed Jessica treating a modestly dressed customer with the utmost respect and professionalism.
Exactly. Actions speak louder than words. And that's Shaq leading by example.
Oh.
You know, he's showing everyone, this is what I mean. This is how we treat every single customer who walks through our doors.
Yeah, it definitely sends a powerful message. But Shaq's not the only role model here, right? What about the other employees?
Right? Remember that young employee, Chris, the one who spoke up during the meeting? He admitted that everyone, including himself, had biases they needed to address.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of vulnerability is crucial for building a culture of honesty and self-reflection.
So it's about creating an environment where people feel safe to admit their biases and work on overcoming them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not about pointing fingers or shaming anyone. It's about collective growth
Yeah.
and recognizing that we all have blind spots.
Right. It creates that sense of shared responsibility for creating a better culture.
Exactly. And let's not forget the power of positive reinforcement. You know, that customer that Jessica helped gave her really positive feedback. And that kind of recognition can be incredibly motivating, and it helps reinforce those new behaviors.
Yeah, it's like a tangible reminder that these changes aren't just some abstract idea. You know, they have a real impact on people's experiences. But what about those who are resistant to change? You know, the folks who are just kind of stuck in their ways and maybe even feel threatened by these new expectations. How do you address that?
That's where accountability comes into play. It's about creating systems and processes that reinforce the desired behaviors and address any backsliding.
So what would that look like? Are we talking about performance reviews or something?
Well, it could involve things like regular check-ins with employees, customer feedback mechanisms, maybe even incorporating these values into performance evaluations. It's about making sure those values are consistently reinforced and not just during a training session.
So it's not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing process of evaluation and improvement.
Exactly. And while the story doesn't go into detail about the specific measures that Shaq put in place, I think we can infer that his leadership style and commitment to transformation would naturally lead to these types of systems being implemented.
Yeah, Shaq doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who would just walk away and hope for the best.
Right.
He seems really invested in the success of this dealership, not just financially, but also in terms of its culture and impact.
Absolutely. And that's where his leadership really shines. He understands that building a positive culture, it's a journey, not a destination. It requires constant attention, reinforcement, and a willingness to adapt along the way.
So we've seen Shaq's initial intervention, the training, the importance of role models, accountability, but the big question remains, did it actually work? Did Shaq's undercover boss mission create real, lasting change at Elite Motors?
Well, the story definitely paints a hopeful picture. We see Jessica's transformation, the positive feedback from customers, and this sense that the atmosphere at the dealership has really shifted. But to truly understand the long-term impact of Shaq's leadership, I think we need to zoom out a bit and consider what Elite Motors might look like a year or two down the line.
Okay, so in the final part of our deep dive, we'll put on our future predicting hats and explore those potential long-term effects, both positive and negative, and what lessons we can all learn from this fascinating story.
Yeah. We'll dive into the challenges that Elite Motors might face in sustaining this cultural shift, the importance of consistent leadership, and ultimately what it takes to create a workplace where everyone feels valued and respected. Stick around. It's going to be interesting.
Okay, so we're back. For the final part of our Shaq deep dive, we saw him shake things up at Elite Motors. He implemented all that training and really pushed for a more respectful, inclusive culture. But change, it's not always easy. So let's try to predict the future here. Imagine Elite Motors a year or two down the road. What do you think? What are some long-term effects we might see from Shaq's intervention?
Well, if those changes really stuck,
Yeah,
I think we'd see a big improvement in employee morale and job satisfaction.
makes sense. Happier employees usually means happier customers.
Exactly. And happier customers means a more successful business. So it's win-win for everyone.
For sure. We might even see fewer people quitting their jobs, right?
Yeah, less turnover.
Yeah.
When people feel like they're part of a positive, supportive team, they're not looking to jump ship as quickly,
Sure.
There's that sense of belonging.
So Shaq's not just impacting the customer experience, he's really changing the whole workplace dynamic.
Right. It's pretty powerful stuff. But let's be realistic. Maintaining that kind of culture change can be really tough. What challenges do you think Elite Motors might face down the line?
Yeah, you're right. It's not always smooth sailing.
One big hurdle could be backsliding. Old habits die hard,
Okay.
And it's totally possible that some employees might revert back to their old ways, especially if they feel like the pressure is off.
So it's not a one and done type of thing. You need to constantly be working on it, reinforcing those values.
Exactly. Ongoing communication, regular training refreshers, and consistent leadership are all super important for keeping everyone on track. And remember, external factors can play a role too. Economic downturns, increased competition, those kinds of things can put pressure on employees and potentially undo some of the progress they've made.
So you need to build a culture that can adapt and stay strong, even when things get tough.
Exactly. It's about resilience. And that's where strong leadership is crucial. Shaq built the foundation. But now it's up to the management team, including Jessica, to carry on that legacy. They have to make sure those values are really ingrained in the dealership, even when Shaq's not there.
Right. It's like that saying, give a man a fish he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish he eats for a lifetime.
Exactly. Shaq's giving them the tools to sustain this change.
Okay. But what about us? What can we as listeners learn from all this? I mean, we might not all own car dealerships, but these lessons seem pretty universal.
Totally. I think it's a really powerful reminder that leadership isn't about your title or position. It's about action. It's about inspiring positive change and having a real impact on the people around you. Shaq could have easily ignored all the issues at Elite Motors, but he didn't. He chose to get involved and lead by example.
Right. And it's also a good reminder that we all have biases, whether we realize it or not. It's up to us to acknowledge those biases, challenge them, and just try to treat everyone fairly and respectfully.
And let's not forget about second chances. Jessica messed up, but she owned up to it. She apologized. She wanted to do better. And Shaq, instead of punishing her, he gave her the chance to learn and grow from it.
Yeah. It's a great example of how we can handle mistakes with compassion,
Yeah.
and focus on improving. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a final thought for you all to think about. Imagine you could sit down with Shaq. Ask him anything about leadership and culture change. What would your one question be?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Let us know on social media using #ShaqDeepDive. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And remember, the next time you walk into a business, whether it's a fancy dealership or just your local coffee shop, take a moment to observe. Look at how people are interacting, their attitudes, the overall vibe. Ask yourself, is this a place where people feel valued and respected?
Because ultimately, creating a positive and inclusive environment, it's good for everyone.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those thought-provoking questions coming.